Hey guys, welcome to Real Talk Cinema, your ultimate destination for mind bending movie explanations, shocking theories, hidden Easter eggs, and deep dives into horror, thriller, and crime films that keep you up at night. From cult classics to modern masterpieces, we break down the movies that make you think twice. Subscribe now, and let's uncover the truth behind the fiction. In the icy wilderness of Bhutan, 1995, four close friends embark on a serene mountain hike, unaware that their journey will spark a cosmic horror. Among them is Paul, an adventurous spirit who begins hearing an eerie whistling echo through the wind, like a whisper not meant for human ears. As they cross a narrow ridge above a canyon of white fog, Paul is inexplicably drawn toward a cave nestled deep in the cliffs. What he finds inside is chilling: a grotesque, fossilized corpse hunched in a meditative pose, limbs bent unnaturally, its face hollow and ancient, as if it had been silently screaming for centuries. The moment Paul lays eyes on the entity, something shifts, his consciousness detaches, and he collapses into a trance. His friends try to revive him, but it's as if Paul has vanished while his body remains. This isn't just a possession, it's a communion with something ancient and unnameable. He's carried out of the cave and becomes lifeless, but not dead, an empty vessel. This entire opening, running almost 20 minutes, feels like a standalone horror short. And that was the original idea. Director David Pryor initially intended this sequence to be a short film before expanding it into the beginning of The Empty Man. This scene sets the tone for what the film truly is: not a simple ghost story, but an exploration of belief, consciousness, and the terrifying concept that thought itself can birth reality. The mountains of Bhutan become the gateway, not just to another place, but to another presence, and Paul's transformation is the spark that ignites a myth which will haunt the rest of the film's timeline. It's slow, chilling, and completely unlike any horror prologue we've seen in modern cinema. After Paul's eyes meet the hollow gaze of the ancient skeletal figure in the cave, the film plunges us into a haunting silence where reality begins to unravel. It's as if the very air thickens, the world around him slows down, and time fractures. Paul's body remains standing, but inside his consciousness drifts far away, slipping into an uncharted abyss. This trance is not a simple faint or unconsciousness, it's a profound and terrifying separation of mind and matter. The light in Paul's eyes dims, replaced by a void so deep that it feels like the collapse of a soul. His friends watch in horror as the lively man they knew transforms into a hollow vessel, emptied of the self they recognized. The film uses this moment to introduce a chilling concept: that thought and belief can birth entities, that the emptiness within us can be filled by something alien and ancient. The skeletal figure isn't just a grotesque relic, it represents an unfathomable cosmic force, a tulpa, a being born from collective human fear and belief, waiting patiently for a host. Paul's trance signals the first step in this dark creation, where the empty man begins to possess not just his body but his very identity. The way the film lingers on this scene, the quiet dread, the unnatural stillness, the isolation, creates a sense of existential horror. It's a moment that goes beyond traditional possession tropes, delving into metaphysics, how a void inside a person can become a doorway for darkness to take root and spread. This event marks the birth of a curse that transcends geography and time, sowing seeds of fear that will grow into a nightmare far from the Himalayan mountains, into the hearts of those who dare whisper its name. After Paul falls into the trance in that cold, desolate cave, his body becomes a shell, eerily still, with vacant eyes staring into nothingness, a haunting image of life drained away. It's a silence so thick that it almost screams, a void that fills the space his spirit once occupied. His friends are left helpless, struggling against a dread that no words can capture. They try to wake him, to reach the man they knew, but their efforts are met with an oppressive emptiness, like grasping for smoke. The camera lingers on Paul's pale face and slack jaw, emphasizing the unnerving stillness of a body present but soul absent. This is no ordinary unconsciousness. The film forces us to confront the terrifying possibility that something ancient and unknowable has claimed him as its host. His lifelessness symbolizes the beginning of a curse that doesn't just kill, but erases, turning flesh into a vessel for a dark cosmic presence that defies human understanding. This moment serves as the gateway into the film's deeper themes: the fragility of identity, the power of belief to reshape reality, and the thin line between existence and oblivion. Paul is no longer Paul, he is the first incarnation of the empty man, an entity born from the darkest corners of the human psyche, and his vacant body becomes a chilling reminder that some things are better left unseen. The haunting Bhutan prologue that opens. The Empty Man wasn't originally meant to be just a scene. It was conceived by director David Pryor as a standalone short film, an atmospheric and unsettling piece designed to capture the essence of cosmic horror in its purest form. This visionary sequence, running nearly 20 minutes, sets the tone for everything that follows: a slow-burning dread that seeps into the mind rather than relying on jump scares or cheap thrills. Pryor's decision to expand this short into the feature's opening was a masterstroke, inviting viewers to enter a world where silence and suggestion wield more power than any blood or gore. The extended prologue serves as a stark contrast to typical horror movie openings, demanding patience and an open mind to absorb its subtle, creeping terror. It's an artistic choice that reflects Pryor's background in crafting meticulously detailed documentaries for other filmmakers, where atmosphere and nuance take center stage. This deliberate pacing challenges the audience's expectations, transforming what could have been a minor scene into a profound introduction to the film's central mystery: how belief and fear can birth a living nightmare. It's a bold cinematic statement about horror as an experience that can evoke deep existential dread, making this segment a rare gem that lingers long after the credits roll. The skeletal figure Paul encounters in the Bhutan cave is not merely a relic of death or a grotesque curiosity, it is the embodiment of something far more ancient, terrifying, and metaphysical. Its twisted posture and hollow eye sockets suggest a being that has transcended mortality, existing in a state between life and death, form and formlessness. This figure is central to the film's exploration of cosmic horror, representing an entity that is less a creature and more a manifestation of existential dread, a presence born from the void itself. The design hints at a being that has endured countless ages, patiently waiting for the right moment and vessel to awaken and spread its influence. In the film's mythos, this skeletal figure can be interpreted as a tulpa, a thought form given life through collective belief and fear. Unlike typical monsters or ghosts, it challenges the very nature of reality by suggesting that human consciousness can create entities with real, devastating power. This figure's appearance foreshadows the deep philosophical horror lurking beneath the film's surface: how an ancient force, invisible and intangible, can invade the human mind, reshape identity, and bring about destruction, not through brute force, but through the subtle erosion of the self. It is a silent harbinger of the empty man's growing power, a symbol of the thin veil separating our world from the terrifying unknown. Asterisk. Following his trance-like collapse, Paul's fate becomes entwined with the ancient force haunting the Bhutanese mountains. His body remains physically alive, but the essence of who he once was begins to fade, replaced slowly and inexorably by something darker. This transformation is not sudden or violent, it is an insidious takeover, a gradual surrender of Paul's identity to the empty man, the malevolent presence that requires a human host to manifest in the physical world. In this process, Paul becomes the first vessel, the prototype through which the entity learns to inhabit and manipulate the mortal plane. The film's deliberate pacing here captures the horror of losing oneself not through dramatic possession scenes, but through creeping detachment. Paul is alive but empty, his mind a blank slate for the entity's will. This change is profoundly tragic. A man erased from existence, his body a walking shell for an unknowable evil. It reflects the film's deeper theme of how fear and belief can not only give birth to monsters, but also consume the very souls of those caught in their wake. Paul's transformation marks the birth of the empty man as a living threat, setting the stage for the sinister events that will unfold far from the mountains, where others will encounter the terrifying legacy of this ancient curse. Paul's eerie transformation and disappearance in the Bhutan mountains might have remained an obscure tragedy, buried in the snow and fog, had it not been for the way the legend of the empty man began to spread far beyond those remote peaks. This is where the film truly expands from intimate horror to a sprawling, ominous mythos, exploring how stories and beliefs can transcend geography and time, infecting minds across continents. The curse that began in a desolate cave now seeps into urban spaces and suburban neighborhoods, showing that ancient evils do not respect borders or logic. As the empty man's influence grows, it manifests through whispers, strange disappearances, and inexplicable violence, turning the myth into a real and terrifying presence. The film cleverly uses this spread to explore the contagious power of fear, how the very act of sharing the story of the empty man amplifies his existence, feeding the darkness. This spreading phenomenon taps into one of horror's oldest fears, that evil can propagate like a disease, carried by rumor, imagination, and the human mind itself. The story's reach into places far removed from the Himalayas reveals the film's core idea that sometimes what we fear most is not what is out there, but what we bring forth from within ourselves when we surrender to the void. As the film shifts its focus away from the chilling Bhutan prologue, we meet James La Sombra, a former cop haunted by loss and burdened by his own demons. James is the reluctant hero who will soon be drawn into the terrifying mystery of the empty man, though he has no idea what lies ahead. His character is not a typical action driven investigator. Instead, he embodies a man wrestling with grief, guilt, and skepticism. His life feels fragmented, and his journey into this dark world mirrors an internal quest for meaning and redemption. When he receives a desperate plea from a grieving mother whose daughter has vanished under mysterious circumstances, James steps back into a world he thought he had left behind. His investigation becomes a descent into a labyrinth of conspiracy, cults, and supernatural horror. Through James, the film explores how ordinary people confront extraordinary evil, how trauma and loss make some vulnerable, yet also give them a reason to fight. His gradual immersion into the myth of the empty man is portrayed with a realism that grounds the film's supernatural elements, making the horror feel intimate and personal. James's character arc is a powerful anchor amid the film's cosmic dread, reminding viewers that human resilience persists even when faced with incomprehensible darkness. The film deepens its narrative tension with the disappearance of Amanda Gray, a young woman whose vanishing acts as the catalyst pulling James La Sombra into the chilling world of the empty man. Amanda's case is not just a missing person story, it's the first tangible thread unraveling a vast, sinister conspiracy that extends beyond ordinary crime. Her disappearance is shrouded in unsettling circumstances, strange symbols, bizarre phone calls, and whispered rumors of a cult that worships the empty man. Amanda's mother, desperate and terrified, represents the human face of this nightmare, grounding the supernatural elements in real emotional stakes. As James begins to investigate, the mystery quickly escalates from a simple search to a descent into darkness, revealing a web of fear, manipulation, and ancient evil lurking beneath the surface of a seemingly ordinary town. This point marks a turning moment in the film's structure, where the horror moves from the abstract and cosmic into the personal and immediate. Amanda's disappearance is not just about her, it's a symptom of a spreading curse, a warning that the empty man's influence is growing, consuming everything in its path. It's a narrative pivot that grips the audience, blending detective thriller with psychological horror and setting the stage for the terrifying revelations to come. As James delves deeper into the mystery, he uncovers the terrifying presence of a secretive cult dedicated to the empty man. This cult isn't just a group of deranged followers, it's a manifestation of collective belief given sinister form. People who have surrendered their minds and souls to the cosmic void the empty man represents. Their rituals are cryptic, disturbing, and steeped in symbolism, designed not only to summon the entity, but to spread its influence by exploiting the power of fear and suggestion. The cult members wear masks and perform ceremonies that blur the lines between reality and nightmare, highlighting the film's core theme of perception shaping existence. This group operates in the shadows, manipulating vulnerable individuals into becoming vessels for the empty man, perpetuating a cycle of possession, disappearance, and death. The film's portrayal of the cult is chilling because it captures how real world fanaticism and psychological control can create horrors far worse than any supernatural monster. It suggests that the true terror lies not only in the entity itself, but in how people's minds can be weaponized against them, allowing darkness to spread through faith, twisted into obsession. This discovery raises the stakes for James as he realizes the fight against the empty man is not just against an ancient force, but against a deeply entrenched human conspiracy. As James Lasombra plunges further into the investigation of the empty man, his pursuit quickly morphs from professional duty into a consuming obsession. The case begins to blur the boundaries between his rational mind and the creeping madness fueled by the sinister myth. James's encounters with the cult, the eerie symbols, and the unexplained disappearances chip away at his skepticism, forcing him to confront terrifying possibilities that challenge his very understanding of reality. This obsession starts to isolate him from those around him, including the few allies he tries to trust. The film masterfully portrays this psychological descent, not as a simple slide into madness, but as a complex unraveling where grief, trauma, and the darkness he seeks intertwine. James's mental state becomes a mirror for the audience's own fear, reflecting how confronting the unknown can erode one's sense of self. The tension builds not only from external threats, but from James's internal battle, making his journey as much about fighting the darkness within as it is about the evil lurking outside. His obsession signals the personal cost of facing a cosmic horror so vast and incomprehensible that it threatens to consume everything, including the last fragments of his identity. One of the most unsettling and iconic images in The Empty Man is the mask worn by the cult members, a blank, expressionless visage that embodies the core concept of emptiness itself. This mask is far more than just a disguise. It is a powerful symbol of identity erasure and the loss of self that the empty man brings to those who fall under its influence. The lack of features evokes a terrifying anonymity, suggesting that beneath the mask lies a void where personality, memory, and humanity have been obliterated. It represents the ultimate surrender to the cosmic force, a transformation from an individual with thoughts and feelings into a hollow shell, a vessel for something far darker. Throughout the film, the mask's blank stare haunts the screen, becoming a visual metaphor for the film's exploration of existential horror, the fear not just of death, but of ceasing to be, of fading into nothingness. The cult's use of these masks also creates a chilling atmosphere of dehumanization, as the members lose their personal identities and become indistinguishable parts of a larger, malevolent force. The mask's eerie calmness contrasts starkly with the chaos and terror beneath the surface, reinforcing the unsettling idea that sometimes the greatest horror lies in what is missing. The absence of self. In The Empty Man, fear is not just an emotion experienced by the characters. It becomes a powerful catalyst that fuels the entire narrative and gives life to the malevolent entity itself. The film brilliantly explores how fear operates as a contagious force, capable of shaping reality and manifesting monstrous consequences. Rather than depicting the empty man as a mere external threat, the story reveals that it thrives on the psychological state of its victims. Their terror, paranoia, and hopelessness are the very fuel that sustains it. This concept is woven throughout the film, highlighting a disturbing feedback loop where fear begets more fear, creating an unstoppable momentum. James Lessombre's investigation serves as a window into this dynamic, as his own fears and doubts begin to blur the lines between truth and nightmare, making him vulnerable to the empty man's influence. The film's unsettling atmosphere and deliberate pacing reflect this idea, immersing the audience in a creeping dread that feels almost tangible. Ultimately, the empty man presents fear not as a fleeting reaction, but as a living, breathing force, one that can erode sanity, distort perception, and open the door to unimaginable horrors. The settings throughout The Empty Man play a crucial role in amplifying the film's unsettling atmosphere and themes of isolation, dread, and the unknown. From the remote, fog shrouded mountains of Bhutan to the cold, quiet suburbs and abandoned buildings of America, each location is carefully chosen to evoke feelings of desolation and vulnerability. The Bhutanese cave, where the curse originates, feels ancient and untouched, symbolizing the timelessness of the evil lurking beneath the surface of human consciousness. As the story moves into urban and suburban spaces, the horror becomes more intimate and relatable. These are places where audiences recognize the safety of normal life unraveling into chaos. The contrast between the exotic mystical origins and the familiar everyday settings underscores the film's theme that the empty man is not just a distant myth, but an invasive force that can breach any boundary, physical or psychological. The use of shadows, muted color palettes, and claustrophobic framing in these settings immerses viewers in a world where danger lurks in every corner and silence speaks volumes. This careful attention to place not only heightens tension, but reinforces the story's existential dread. The terror that no matter where we are, some darkness is always waiting to consume us. At its core, The Empty Man is as much a psychological exploration of grief and loss as it is a horror story. James Lassombre's journey is driven not only by the mystery of the disappearances but by his own personal trauma, the loss of his wife, and the emotional void it leaves in his life. This personal sorrow shapes his worldview and renders him susceptible to the creeping darkness of the empty man. The film uses James's grief as a powerful lens to examine how loss can create cracks in the human psyche that dark forces can exploit. His search for Amanda Gray parallels his deeper longing for closure, understanding, and perhaps redemption. This emotional undercurrent adds profound depth to the narrative, reminding viewers that horror often reflects real human pain and vulnerability. The empty man, then, becomes more than a supernatural villain. It embodies the fear of emptiness that haunts those who suffer profound loss. By weaving this theme into the fabric of the story, the film elevates itself beyond genre conventions, inviting the audience to reflect on how trauma shapes identity and perception, and how the monsters we fear might be reflections of our own inner voids. In The Empty Man, dreams and hallucinations are not mere narrative devices, but crucial elements that deepen the film's exploration of reality and perception. Throughout James Lessombre's investigation, these surreal visions blur the line between waking life and nightmare, pulling him and the audience into a disorienting liminal space where certainty fades. The film uses these distorted mental states to symbolize the psychological invasion of the empty man, showing how the entity doesn't just haunt the physical world, but seeps into the subconscious. These dreamlike sequences are rich with symbolic imagery, empty masks, void-like darkness, and haunting figures that evoke feelings of dread and helplessness. They serve to illustrate the erosion of James's grip on reality, highlighting how fear and trauma can fracture the mind. Moreover, the film's use of hallucinations underscores one of its core themes, the power of belief, and the mind's vulnerability to suggestion. As James succumbs more and more to these visions, the audience is forced to question what is real and what is a manifestation of the empty man's influence, heightening the sense of existential horror. This blending of dream and reality reinforces the film's unsettling atmosphere and its meditation on the fragility of human consciousness when confronted with the unknown. One of the most chilling aspects of The Empty Man lies in how the cult manipulates its followers, not just through overt rituals, but through subtle psychological control and mind games. The cult members use fear, isolation, and suggestion to break down individual identities, making their recruits more susceptible to possession by the empty man. This manipulation is portrayed as a slow, creeping process where believers are gradually alienated from their own sense of reality, replaced by a shared delusion shaped by the cult's dogma. The film presents this psychological takeover with haunting realism, showing how vulnerable people can be drawn into destructive belief systems when they seek meaning, belonging, or escape from pain. The cult's tactics mirror real world methods of brainwashing, blending the supernatural with the deeply human tendency to seek order in chaos, even at great personal cost. Through this lens, the horror becomes more profound and disturbing because it reflects actual mechanisms of control and loss of free will. The cult isn't just a plot device, it symbolizes the terrifying power of manipulation and the fragility of the human mind in the face of overwhelming fear and desperation. Sound design in The Empty Man is a masterclass in creating an atmosphere of creeping dread, using both eerie noises and deliberate silences to amplify the horror. The film's soundtrack avoids conventional jump scares and loud effects. Instead, it employs unsettling ambient sounds, whispers, faint echoes, and distant howls that haunt the background and unsettle the viewer's nerves. These subtle auditory cues work in tandem with moments of heavy silence, where the absence of sound becomes almost suffocating, forcing the audience to focus intently on the tension building within the scene. This interplay between sound and silence mirrors the film's themes of emptiness and the void, reinforcing the feeling that something unseen and malevolent lurks just beyond perception. The soundtrack becomes a character in itself, guiding the emotional rhythm and psychological impact of the narrative. This thoughtful use of sound design enhances the immersive experience, making viewers feel as if they are descending alongside James into a world where reality unravels and silence speaks louder than words. The Empty Man deliberately adopts a slow burn approach to storytelling, allowing tension and dread to accumulate gradually rather than relying on immediate shocks or fast paced action. This pacing is a conscious choice that mirrors the psychological unraveling experienced by James Lasombra and the creeping influence of the empty man itself. By unfolding the narrative methodically, the film invites viewers to immerse themselves deeply in its unsettling world, savoring each moment of eerie silence, symbolic imagery, and cryptic dialogue. This measured tempo builds a pervasive sense of unease that lingers long after scenes end, creating an atmosphere thick with suspense and existential terror. While some audiences may find this pacing challenging, it ultimately serves to deepen the emotional and intellectual impact of the story. The slow burn also allows the film's complex themes, such as grief, fear, and manipulation, to resonate more fully, emphasizing that true horror often lies in the anticipation and unknown rather than in immediate revelation. This patient, layered storytelling makes The Empty Man a uniquely haunting experience that rewards attentive and thoughtful viewers. The cinematography of The Empty Man plays a pivotal role in crafting the film's unsettling and eerie atmosphere. Through its use of muted color palettes, dim lighting, and unconventional framing, the film visually communicates the themes of emptiness and isolation. Shots are often composed with wide, empty spaces or claustrophobic close ups, reflecting the protagonist James's internal state, caught between vast, unknowable darkness and suffocating mental confinement. The film's visual style uses shadows and darkness strategically, often obscuring details and forcing viewers to imagine what lurks beyond the frame, tapping into the primal fear of the unseen. The deliberate pacing of camera movements and the choice to linger on unsettling imagery further immerse the audience into a world where normal perception breaks down. This approach not only heightens tension, but also reinforces the narrative's existential dread, making the visual experience as haunting and impactful as the story itself. The cinematography transforms every frame into a canvas of suspense and psychological horror, drawing viewers deeper into the film's mysterious and terrifying reality. James Lesombre, the film's central character, is crafted with a deep complexity that elevates the empty man beyond a typical horror protagonist. He is a former detective haunted by personal tragedy, grappling with loss and trauma that permeate every aspect of his being. This internal struggle makes him a deeply flawed yet relatable figure, whose determination to solve the mystery is as much about seeking closure for himself as it is about rescuing others. His emotional journey is portrayed with nuance, highlighting how grief can cloud judgment and lead to dangerous obsession. James's skepticism is tested repeatedly, forcing him to confront not only external horrors but the demons within his own mind. The film uses his perspective to explore themes of faith, reality, and madness, blurring the lines between them in a way that keeps viewers questioning what is real. This layered portrayal invites empathy and fascination, making James's descent into the darkness all the more compelling and tragic. Through him, the film examines how the search for meaning in chaos can sometimes lead to self-destruction. The Empty Man subtly weaves elements of Eastern mythology and folklore into its narrative, lending the story a sense of ancient mystery and cosmic horror. The film's roots trace back to a remote Bhutanese cave, a location steeped in spiritual and cultural significance, which serves as the origin of the curse and the Empty Man legend. This setting connects the horror to traditional beliefs about spirits, emptiness, and the unknown that transcend Western conceptions of evil. The blending of Western detective noir with Eastern mysticism creates a unique atmosphere where the supernatural feels both timeless and otherworldly. The film's incorporation of these cultural elements enriches the story, offering layers of symbolism and depth that reflect on universal fears about the void and the fragility of human understanding. This fusion also emphasizes the theme that some terrors are beyond human control or comprehension, rooted in ancient truths that modern rationality cannot easily explain. By drawing from Eastern mythos, The Empty Man elevates its horror from simple scares to a meditation on cosmic insignificance and spiritual dread. One of the most striking features of The Empty Man is its deliberately ambiguous ending, which leaves many questions unanswered and invites viewers to interpret the film's meaning in their own way. Instead of providing a clear resolution or neatly tying up the narrative threads, the ending plunges James and the audience into a surreal, nightmarish confrontation with the empty man. This ambiguity reinforces the film's themes of existential dread and the unknowable nature of cosmic horror. The open-ended conclusion challenges traditional storytelling expectations, emphasizing that some horrors cannot be fully understood or defeated. It forces viewers to grapple with the idea that the emptiness and darkness represented by the empty man are ever present, lurking beneath the surface of reality and the human mind. The ending's unsettling nature often sparks intense discussion and debate, making it a memorable and thought-provoking finale that lingers long after the credits roll. This choice elevates the film from a standard horror thriller to a psychological and philosophical exploration of fear, belief, and the void. Water appears throughout The Empty Man as a recurring motif, symbolizing both cleansing and drowning, life and oblivion. It serves as a powerful metaphor for the thin boundary between reality and the unknown, as well as the emotional states of the characters, particularly James. Scenes involving water, whether it's rain falling during moments of despair or the eerie calm of still lakes, highlight the duality of water's nature. It can nurture and sustain, yet also overwhelm and erase. This duality mirrors James's psychological journey as he is drawn deeper into the cult's dark mysteries and his own unraveling mind. The fluidity of water reflects the shifting perception of reality in the film, where what seems solid and real can quickly dissolve into nightmare. Water's presence in the film subtly underscores the themes of emptiness and transformation, emphasizing that crossing certain thresholds, like wading into water, can mean entering a realm where the familiar laws of nature and self no longer apply. This motif enriches the film's atmospheric storytelling by adding layers of symbolism that resonate on both a narrative and emotional level. Dot. The Empty Man is rich with symbolism and visual metaphors that deepen its narrative complexity and psychological impact. Throughout the film, symbolic imagery, such as empty masks, winding tunnels, and shadows that stretch unnaturally, serves to illustrate themes of identity, fear, and the unknown. The empty mask, for instance, represents the loss of self and the erasure of individuality, a core aspect of the empty man's terrifying power. Visual metaphors like the labyrinthine passages James navigates symbolize his mental state, confused, trapped, and descending deeper into darkness. These carefully crafted images invite viewers to look beyond the surface story and engage with the film on a more abstract level, decoding the hidden meanings embedded in its cinematography. The symbolism also amplifies the film's unsettling mood, creating an almost dreamlike or nightmarish quality that lingers in the mind. By employing these metaphors, the film communicates complex ideas about existential dread, the fragility of the psyche, and the blurred line between reality and illusion, making The Empty Man a work that rewards thoughtful and repeated viewings. The Empty Man employs a non-linear narrative structure that challenges traditional storytelling conventions, weaving together past and present, reality and hallucination, in a fragmented way that mirrors the protagonist's mental disintegration. This approach creates an intricate puzzle for the audience, encouraging active engagement as viewers piece together clues from disjointed timelines and surreal sequences. The nonlinear storytelling enhances the film's themes of memory, trauma, and the elusive nature of truth, emphasizing how grief and fear can distort perception and time itself. By moving fluidly between moments of James's investigation, his flashbacks, and his nightmares, the film portrays the collapse of a coherent reality, immersing viewers in the protagonist's deteriorating psyche. This storytelling choice deepens the psychological horror by making the experience disorienting and immersive, reflecting the chaos within James's mind as he confronts forces beyond his understanding. The fragmented narrative underscores the film's exploration of how trauma fractures identity and the difficulty of finding clarity in the face of overwhelming darkness. Isolation and alienation permeate The Empty Man, serving as both thematic pillars and psychological catalysts for the unfolding horror. James La Sombra's journey is marked by physical isolation. He often traverses lonely, desolate landscapes and abandoned spaces that mirror his emotional detachment from the world around him. This physical solitude amplifies his sense of alienation, not only from society, but also from his own sense of self, as grief and trauma cut him off from meaningful human connection. The film uses this loneliness to heighten the tension and underscore the fragility of the human psyche when severed from support and community. James's alienation makes him vulnerable to the influence of the cult and the empty man, as it fuels his desperation and willingness to grasp at answers no matter the cost. This theme resonates deeply because it taps into a universal fear, the terror of being utterly alone in facing the unknown. The film's depiction of isolation extends beyond the protagonist to a broader existential commentary on how detachment and disconnection can open the door to darkness, both literal and metaphorical. The Empty Man delves deeply into the themes of faith and belief, exploring how these forces can both empower and destroy. Throughout the film, characters are drawn into the cult's terrifying doctrine, illustrating how belief can become a double-edged sword, offering hope and meaning, but also opening the mind to manipulation and madness. James's journey is marked by his struggle between skepticism and the unsettling reality he uncovers, forcing him to confront questions about what is real and what is illusion. The film portrays faith not as a simple refuge, but as a complex and dangerous terrain, where conviction can blur the lines between salvation and damnation. This exploration invites viewers to consider how belief shapes perception and reality, and how the human desire to find answers in the unknown can sometimes lead down dark, irreversible paths. The cult's dogma, with its promise of transcendence through emptiness, represents a distorted form of faith that ultimately consumes those who surrender to it, highlighting the precarious balance between hope and horror. One of the standout aspects of The Empty Man is its use of practical effects and makeup to create visceral, unsettling imagery that enhances the film's horror elements. Rather than relying heavily on CGI, the filmmakers employed physical prosthetics, detailed makeup, and in camera effects to bring the disturbing manifestations of the empty man and the cult's influence to life. This choice adds a tangible, gritty texture to the film's visuals, making the supernatural horrors feel disturbingly real and immediate. The practical effects work in tandem with the film's shadowy lighting and eerie cinematography, creating a tactile sense of dread that digital effects often fail to replicate. The grotesque transformations and haunting appearances are crafted with meticulous detail, amplifying the body horror aspect and underscoring the theme of loss of humanity. This commitment to practical effects not only grounds the film's surreal elements but also pays homage to classic horror cinema, enhancing the overall immersive and chilling experience for the audience. The Empty Man stands apart from many modern horror films by focusing less on jump scares and more on cultivating an intense psychological horror that lingers long after viewing. The film's terror is rooted in the slow erosion of the protagonist's mind and the creeping sense of existential dread that permeates every scene. Rather than startling the audience with sudden loud noises or flashy visuals, it builds fear through atmosphere, mood, and the gradual unraveling of reality. This psychological approach delves into deep fears, loss of control, identity dissolution, and the terrifying void of emptiness that the film's antagonist embodies. By engaging viewers' minds and emotions on this level, the horror becomes more profound and personal, provoking reflection on the nature of fear itself. This subtle, cerebral terror makes The Empty Man a haunting experience that challenges viewers to confront not just external monsters, but the darkness within themselves. In The Empty Man, the cult at the story's core serves as a modern myth, embodying humanity's darkest fears about community, control, and the unknown. Unlike traditional horror villains, the cult represents a collective force, a disturbing manifestation of belief and conformity taken to terrifying extremes. Their rituals, symbols, and eerie devotion evoke ancient secret societies, blending superstition with contemporary anxieties about isolation and identity loss. The cult's presence in the film highlights the danger of blindly following ideas without question, showing how vulnerable minds can be manipulated into surrendering individuality for a false sense of belonging. This modern myth echoes real-world fears of fanaticism and cult dynamics, making the horror feel both fantastical and disturbingly plausible. Through the cult, The Empty Man explores how humans seek meaning in emptiness, sometimes at the cost of their sanity and freedom. The sound design in The Empty Man is masterfully crafted to amplify the film's unsettling atmosphere, playing a crucial role in immersing viewers into its eerie and oppressive world. Rather than relying on conventional horror sound tropes, the film uses subtle ambient noises, unsettling silence, and distorted sounds to create a persistent sense of unease. From the faint whispering voices to the eerie echoes in empty hallways, every sound element is designed to keep the audience on edge, often making them question what is real and what might be a product of the characters' unraveling minds. The careful layering of sound works hand in hand with the visuals to build tension slowly, heightening emotional responses without overwhelming with loud or sudden noises. This nuanced approach to sound design mirrors the film's psychological focus, reinforcing the themes of paranoia, confusion, and creeping dread. By manipulating sound in such an artful way, The Empty Man deepens its haunting experience, making the unseen terrors feel palpably present Dot. At its core, The Empty Man is a profound exploration of grief and trauma, weaving these emotional states intricately into its horror narrative. The protagonist, James the Sombra, is haunted by the disappearance of his wife and the psychological scars that event has left behind. His grief manifests not only in his actions, but also in the film's haunting imagery and atmosphere, where loss becomes a tangible, almost supernatural force. The story delves into how unresolved trauma distorts perception, making the boundary between reality and hallucination dangerously thin. This emotional depth elevates the film from a mere supernatural thriller to a poignant character study about human vulnerability and the desperate need for closure. The horror in The Empty Man is not just external, but internal, reflecting the dark recesses of the mind where pain festers and consumes. By intertwining grief with cosmic horror, the film creates a compelling and unsettling portrait of a man battling both his personal demons and an unfathomable evil. The cinematography of The Empty Man plays a pivotal role in shaping the film's haunting and atmospheric tone. The visual style is characterized by its muted color palette, shadow-heavy compositions, and carefully framed shots that create a sense of claustrophobia and impending doom. Cinematographer Larkin Seipel employs slow, deliberate camera movements and long takes that build tension and immerse viewers in the unsettling world James inhabits. The use of darkness and negative space is especially significant, emphasizing the theme of emptiness and the unknown. The stark contrast between light and shadow not only contribute to the eerie mood, but also symbolize the internal struggle between clarity and confusion faced by the protagonist. These visual choices reinforce the film's psychological depth and elevate its horror beyond simple jump scares to a more sophisticated cinematic experience. The artistry behind the camera invites the audience to feel the isolation and dread permeating every scene, making The Empty Man visually memorable and deeply affecting. James Badge. Dale's performance as James Le Sombra is a cornerstone of The Empty Man, bringing emotional depth and subtle complexity to a character caught between rationality and madness. Dale's portrayal captures the gradual unraveling of a man gripped by grief, fear, and obsession, delivering a nuanced performance that anchors the film's often surreal and unsettling narrative. His expressive eyes and controlled physicality convey a silent torment, allowing viewers to feel James's internal struggle, even in moments of quiet reflection. The way Dale balances vulnerability with determination makes his descent into the darkness both believable and compelling, drawing audiences deeply into the psychological horror at the film's heart. His interactions with other characters are layered with tension, often underscoring the themes of isolation and mistrust that permeate the story. Overall, Dale's performance elevates The Empty Man beyond a conventional horror thriller, imbuing it with humanity and emotional resonance that linger long after the film ends. The Empty Man offers a subtle yet powerful commentary on mental health, exploring how trauma, grief, and isolation can fracture the mind and distort reality. Throughout the film, James Le Sombra's psychological deterioration is portrayed not just as a personal tragedy, but as a reflection of how the human psyche struggles to cope with overwhelming loss and fear. The film blurs the lines between supernatural horror and psychological breakdown, inviting viewers to question whether the empty man is an external evil or a manifestation of James's internal torment. This ambiguity highlights the stigma and misunderstandings often surrounding mental health issues, suggesting that unseen battles can be as terrifying as any external threat. By weaving mental health themes into the horror narrative, the film encourages empathy and awareness, reminding audiences of the fragility of the mind and the importance of addressing trauma before it consumes the individual entirely. The setting in The Empty Man plays a crucial role in creating the film's oppressive and eerie atmosphere, amplifying its themes of isolation and mystery. The story unfolds across various desolate and abandoned places, dilapidated houses, empty forests, and forgotten towns that reflect the internal desolation of the protagonist, James Le Sombra. These bleak environments are not merely backdrops, but active participants in the narrative, evoking a sense of abandonment and decay that mirrors James's emotional state. The sparse and haunting landscapes serve to heighten the film's tension, making the viewer feel the cold emptiness that pervades the story. The setting also functions symbolically, representing the unknown and the places where reality breaks down, inviting characters and audience alike into a realm where normal rules no longer apply. This deliberate use of location deepens the psychological impact of the film and reinforces the unsettling journey into darkness that James undertakes. The Empty Man is heavily influenced by the graphic novel it is based on, and this connection is evident in the film's visual storytelling and thematic complexity. The graphic novel's detailed and moody artwork translates into the film's dark, atmospheric style, with a strong emphasis on mood and character psychology. The cinematic adaptation retains the novel's intricate narrative layers, blending supernatural elements with psychological thriller tropes, resulting in a story that is both visually rich and intellectually engaging. The film adopts the graphic novel's tendency to blur reality and fantasy, creating a haunting experience that challenges viewers to interpret its cryptic symbols and fragmented plot. This influence also extends to the pacing and tone, as the film mirrors the novel's slow build and heavy emphasis on atmosphere over conventional scares. The adaptation respects the source material's depth and tone, making The Empty Man a unique fusion of comic book art and cinematic horror. The Empty Man is rife with symbolism and metaphor that enrich the narrative, inviting viewers to look beyond the surface and engage with its deeper meanings. The titular Empty Man itself serves as a powerful symbol of existential void, despair, and the human fear of meaninglessness. Throughout the film, recurring motifs, such as the empty void, the cult's strange rituals, and the haunting visions, function as metaphors for psychological emptiness and the collapse of identity under trauma and fear. These symbolic elements challenge viewers to interpret the story on multiple levels, from a straightforward horror tale to a meditation on the fragility of the mind and the dangers of surrendering oneself to nihilism. The film's layered symbolism not only enhances its eerie atmosphere, but also provides a philosophical underpinning that elevates it beyond a typical genre movie, making it a thoughtful exploration of human vulnerability in the face of the unknown. Though The Empty Man did not achieve widespread commercial success upon release, it has since developed a devoted cult following, celebrated for its unique approach to horror and psychological storytelling. Its complex narrative, atmospheric direction, and philosophical themes have resonated deeply with viewers seeking horror that challenges the mind rather than just delivering scares. Fans appreciate the film's deliberate pacing, intricate symbolism, and unsettling mood, which distinguish it from more conventional horror fare. This lasting impact reflects a growing audience appetite for films that explore existential dread and mental health through genre storytelling. The Empty Man stands as a testament to how films can find appreciation over time, especially those that offer layered narratives and artistic ambition. Its cult status underscores the power of horror to provoke thought and evoke profound emotional responses, securing its place as a modern classic for dedicated genre enthusiasts. The Empty Man profoundly engages with existential nihilism, the idea that life is inherently meaningless and void of intrinsic purpose. The film channels this philosophy through its eerie narrative and unsettling imagery, reflecting the terrifying void at the heart of human existence. The Empty Man himself symbolizes this abyss, an embodiment of emptiness that consumes individuals who grapple with the harsh realities of loss and despair. This exploration forces viewers to confront uncomfortable questions about identity, purpose, and the human condition. Rather than offering comfort or resolution, the film presents nihilism as a dark, seductive force that promises escape from pain but ultimately leads to psychological and spiritual annihilation. This philosophical undercurrent sets The Empty Man apart, making it not just a horror film, but a meditation on the fragility of meaning in an indifferent universe. The Empty Man incorporates dream logic and surreal imagery to blur the boundaries between reality and hallucination, creating a disorienting experience that mirrors the protagonist's fractured psyche. The narrative often unfolds in a non-linear, surreal fashion, with scenes that feel more like disturbing dreams or nightmares than concrete events. This approach enhances the film's psychological horror by immersing the viewer in James Lasombra's mind, where fear and confusion reign supreme. Surreal sequences, marked by strange symbols, shifting landscapes, and inexplicable phenomena, challenge viewers to piece together meaning while feeling the protagonist's growing sense of helplessness. This dreamlike style also reinforces the theme of losing grip on reality, emphasizing the terrifying possibility that what we perceive as real may be fragile and deceptive. The film's surrealism is a deliberate artistic choice that elevates it above straightforward horror, inviting audiences into a haunting and introspective journey. Memory plays a crucial haunting role in The Empty Man, where the film explores how fragile and unreliable our recollections can be, especially under trauma and psychological stress. James Lasombra's journey is clouded by fragmented and distorted memories, blurring the lines between what truly happened and what his mind fabricates. This unreliability of memory feeds into the film's unsettling atmosphere as viewers are left questioning the truth behind the protagonist's perceptions. The narrative suggests that memory can become a trap, twisting reality, erasing details, and allowing fear to fester in the spaces between what is remembered and forgotten. This theme deepens the horror, making it as much about internal psychological collapse as about external supernatural forces. The Empty Man uses the fragility of memory to comment on how trauma can rewrite our personal histories, leaving us lost in a labyrinth of doubt and confusion. Isolation is a pervasive force in The Empty Man, shaping James Lasombra's psychological unraveling and amplifying the film's haunting mood. The character's growing physical and emotional isolation mirrors his descent into madness, with the lack of meaningful human connection leaving him vulnerable to the creeping influence of the cult and the Empty Man entity itself. This profound loneliness not only fuels James's obsession with uncovering the truth, but also symbolizes a universal human fear, the terror of being utterly alone in the face of overwhelming darkness. The film uses isolation to intensify the sense of claustrophobia and helplessness, making the audience feel as trapped as James in a world where trust is scarce and danger lurks in every shadow. Through this lens, isolation is not just a plot device, but a psychological condition that drives the narrative and underscores the film's exploration of fear, despair, and the need for connection. The Empty Man employs a complex, layered narrative structure that deliberately withholds information and unfolds through multiple perspectives, creating an intricate puzzle for the audience to piece together. This non-linear storytelling challenges traditional horror conventions by blending investigative thriller elements with supernatural mystery and psychological drama. The film's fragmented timeline and shifting points of view not only reflect the protagonist's fractured mental state, but also build suspense by gradually revealing the depth of the cult's influence and the true nature of the Empty Man. This structure demands active engagement from viewers, encouraging them to analyze clues and interpret ambiguous scenes. While this approach may initially confuse some audiences, it ultimately enriches the experience, making the story more immersive and thought-provoking. By defying straightforward narrative expectations, The Empty Man pushes the boundaries of genre storytelling, crafting a haunting tale that lingers long after the credits roll. In The Empty Man, the cult at the center of the story serves as a chilling exploration of psychological manipulation and the power of belief systems to control and consume individuals. The film delves into how cults exploit human vulnerabilities, fear, grief, and the longing for meaning, using rituals, mythology, and social pressure to dismantle personal identity and impose a collective mindset. This depiction goes beyond mere horror tropes, offering a disturbing commentary on how susceptible the human mind can be when faced with existential uncertainty and trauma. The cult's influence in the film symbolizes the dangers of surrendering to nihilism and losing oneself in the search for escape or enlightenment. through its eerie portrayal of the cult's rituals and the psychological unraveling of its members. The Empty Man highlights the dark consequences of manipulation and the fragility of free will under oppressive belief systems. Thanks so much for watching this deep dive into The Empty Man. If you enjoyed exploring the dark mysteries and hidden layers of this film with me, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to Real Talk Cinema for more in-depth movie explanations, facts, and reviews. Got a movie you want me to break down next? Drop it in the comments below. Until next time, keep watching, keep questioning, and stay curious. See you in the next video.